My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and
Plus
beer.
years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Saying community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here of Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, the raspy dispatcher. We are recording this episode on August 20th, 2023. And this past week, one of our local departments out here in the Bay Area, California, San Jose Police Department, had an officer injured after an ambush shooting. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the hurt the San Jose Police Department as a whole and the comm center is feeling right now. I've had some folks from that department on this show, and I've maintained a close relationship with them ongoing. And being from the Bay Area, I just wanted to let anyone listening know. I'm sure many comm centers across the country are thinking of you. Unfortunately, have been there before. And we're sending all the positive vibes and good thoughts your way during this hard time. I unfortunately have experienced the death of an officer in a very similar call for service in my career, and it's nothing that I would want to experience again. But like so many calls that we are trained to receive, dispatchers have to be prepared to act when a situation like this arises during our shift. And with all that being said, I'm going to bring on today's guest who has spent 29 plus years as a dispatcher, and for at least 7 or more of those years have been instructing for a private company with instruction specialty in homeland security, stress management, and so much more. Today's guest is Kat Martin. Hi, Kat.
Hi, Ashley.
How are you?
I'm doing good. Enjoying
Awesome.
my Sunday.
Yes, man, isn't that the truth? I actually was able to get yesterday off to help my partner do a safety fair day. So yeah, so they had the fire department come out, the police department, and a bunch of other resources for the area that we live in. And they taught like the kids how to use the fire extinguisher. Folks could grab some pepper spray and learn when and when not to use pepper spray. So it was a really fun event, but I'm wounded. Okay, my feet hurt, I'm tired, a little sunburned, and I was thinking, man, I should have went to shift.
We actually do something similar at my agency called Passport to Safety.
Ooh,
and there's 10 different stations that you get to go to, and one of them is 911. Yes. So we have a whole 911 booth set up, and they come in and we walk them through how to dial 911, and then we actually have phones that they use, and it's a great resource. It's great. Kids love it. Lots of free stuff, like you said. Fire department, our canines out there demonstrating. Yes. So
it was a very cool experience. I didn't have enough time to like throw together a booth for me to participate in an official manner as a raspy dispatcher, but I was just looking at all the options that we had for the kids to learn. I was like, we need a dispatch booth, we need something. So the phone method, having the phones is a really good idea to put out there for me to put in my little back of my mind.
If you need help with it, let me know.
Hey, I appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into public safety and what that looks like for you.
Okay, so I'm originally from Canada, so every once in a while you're going to hear it come out. But I was born and raised there. I actually graduated from police college. My whole life, I knew that I was going to be a police officer, military. So I worked towards that. I had my goals, but unfortunately, right before I graduated from college, my mom passed away. So kind of threw me a bit for a loop. And so when I got out and I finished, I had spent a bit of time on the road, but I decided to move over to the US to join the military over here. So move over to the US. I got into the Navy. I was excited, couldn't wait to leave for basic, and I got hit by a car.
Wow, man,
So
rough,
don't
rough.
recommend doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So got hit by a car, suffered a lot of injuries. And 2 months after I was hit by the car, my dad was killed. So I had a lot happen really fast.
I would
And
say.
yep. And my aunt stepped in and was, helping me out. She got me into a job at ADT where I was dispatching and field support for them.
Mm,
One of my guards who did it part-time was an officer. And he's like, why are you doing this? He goes, why don't you actually use your knowledge and, be a dispatcher?
mm.
It's like what? Like 911? Like, yeah. I said, that's a real job. I was like, because like I said, my whole life I was a police officer. I mean, that was, I didn't realize that dispatch was an actual job or career at the time. And this was a long time ago.
Dates don't matter. Dates don't matter.
Yeah,
Let's talk
it's not
dispatch.
bad. It's good. So I put out a bunch of applications to a bunch of different agencies, and I got in with a city that's not too far from where I'm at right now, borders Detroit. And I spent my first couple of years there. We were the first dispatchers they ever had at that agency.
Wow.
So they didn't know what to do with us. So myself and a couple of the other ones that came in, we developed the training program and, helped out with that. Like, walking in with my knowledge from the police was a huge help. But the fire side, I was just like, go.
I still
I
am.
had no
I have
idea.
a chance for you.
Yep. They were just like, well, this is a phone. This is a pen and paper.
Oh my, whoa.
Yeah. We had no CAD. We had nothing. So
Yeah.
it was definitely different. It wasn't what I was used to.
Mm,
After a couple of years there, which I absolutely loved, they were busy then I'll get up. It was a great department to work for, but I made the step up to the agency that I'm currently with. So I've been there for 27 years with my current
wow.
agency. And I've seen a lot and been through a lot there, but I love being a dispatcher. I've had the opportunity to go to other agencies to be supervisors. I've been offered jobs and I've turned them down because I like being behind the mic. I like knowing that I'm sending people home safe, hopefully at the end of the night. And, like you, and I said, God bless San Jose. I'll be praying for them as well and their officers and everybody that was involved. It's a tough thing to go through.
Yeah.
So,
it's one of those things that for me, my experience, I remember my agency came in and they're like, it's been 20 some odd years since we've actually had an officer killed in the line of duty. And I remember them telling us that in our academy. And then I remember waking up to the officer being pinned down and all of the calls coming in to us, like letting us know who are coming into shift, what was going on at our agency. And I just spent the whole night that night because, we weren't doing anything else. Just hearing the individual pop off shots on the back channels. And I mean, it took a very long time for us to get off that call and move on with, the regular day-to-day stuff. But you never, in this line of work, you never know what call is going to drop in your ear or what's coming over the radio. I mean, it happens instantly.
Exactly.
We prepare for emergencies. We can't predict them, so I would say it's one of those things that I would imagine with your experience and especially your specialty in instructing folks in this line of work in many shapes and forms that you touch on at some point in some way.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And especially with the stress management class, I mean, those are my favorites, the stress management, the homeland security. Although I teach all of them, the 40-hour basic and 40-hour advanced classes, those two are my babies. Those two are the ones that I really feel like I can give the most and impart the most to new dispatchers to the career. And that having to deal with, like you said, going from one call, and it's not like 911 stopped coming in. You're
Yeah,
dealing with that
exactly.
incident, and in the middle of that,
Mhm,
somebody's got a heart attack, or,
mhm.
somebody's kids died, or somebody's calling for, an address somewhere. It's like,
Yeah.
Google.
Yeah. Please, Google is real. That is one of my favorite I'll Google it for you. Please hold. Like,
Mhm. Yep, yep. Let me help you out with that. Sure, not a problem.
what?
But yeah, so it is that transitioning from the screaming, 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 or whatever it is that you're dealing with,
Mhm,
to
mhm.
into something that is completely inane and has makes no sense at this moment, but you
Yeah.
still have to deal with it. You still have to be a professional.
Mhm,
So,
mhm. And, I feel to tangent and sidestep a little bit, I feel like I've talked to a lot of folks who have been doing this for a long time, and I don't think I've talked to someone who has been one of the first dispatchers at a department. I've always
mm,
thought, like, new department, and I came in and I was a trainee and they've been there.
yeah,
But to be one like your badge number to be
it,
one, you know what I mean?
yep,
Like, I can
exactly.
imagine, like, knowing what you know now versus like day one on the job. What was that like? And the transition that you've seen and the
Oh my
growth?
gosh. It's been the growth has been absolutely amazing.
Mm,
But seriously, my first day on the job, I was just like, they gave me a map of the city, they gave me some other information, and nothing against them. I mean, they just
yeah,
didn't know what to do with us.
yeah.
They just knew that, hey, this was a position we needed filled,
Mhm.
because they had cadets doing it before that.
Oh, wow.
So they brought us in, and they had developed a couple of little things. These are common, type of run incidents. Here's a map of the city, but we literally just had a radio, a phone that you held up, and pen and paper.
Man.
And it was crazy. I was just like, wow. So we
Yeah.
helped, after I left, they got, CAD and all that, but they didn't have it
Mhm.
while I was there.
Mm.
So to
The
go from,
disrespect,
hand
really.
typing, yeah, it's like to going from hand typing and writing everything to moving
Mhm.
to my new agency where they had CAD,
Yeah.
and they were, and so I went from an agency where we did where a lot of agencies are multi-use for their dispatch, where they'll be jailers as well, they'll work the
Mhm.
front desk. We did
Mhm.
that at my original agency. Well, my current agency, we dispatch,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
answer 911 calls, and we dispatch police, fire, rescue. We don't
Mhm.
take non-emergency. We don't enter
Mhm.
warrants. We don't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We focus on our guys. And that's one of the
Mhm.
things that I love about it. I
Mhm.
mean, that's one of the best things is I can focus on making sure that everyth's getting done that needs to get done today.
Mhm.
And make sure, like I said, my guys are going home, especially now, because back then it was all the officers were, old, begrudging guys. They were all set in their ways, and that now
Mhm.
it just seems to me like they're all babies. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, they're so young. And I'm like, okay, I was 20 when I graduated from police college. You were young too at one point. And I'm like, but now, it's like, holy cow, it's crazy that, we've got these young guys coming in, and I feel a
Mhm.
definite responsibility for them. But the computers,
Mhm.
the prepared live, the
Mhm.
rapid SOS, all these amazing systems that we have at our hands now. We
Mhm.
do things so much faster and so
Yeah.
much better. I think it's just, it really makes our job a lot easier, and
Mhm.
it gives us a little more fun on the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I like to say, we're great detectives, but man, with those computers, we can find anybody.
Man, isn't that type of click, 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 I found him.
Yep.
My
I
favorite
will
is
hunt
when,
you
like,
down.
when an officer comes up, he's like, "Yeah, can you try to find first name Jim?
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
Hispanic male, 30s, out of Santa Cruz." And you're like,
Yeah.
"Okay, like that's it, but we can find them
Okay, yeah.
sometimes."
There's only a
The
couple. We'll figure it out.
challenge accepted.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
one thing I want to touch on, especially when we're talking about going from paper to our like normal, or not normal, but our newly traditional CAD systems and things like that. How would
Mhm.
you, what advice would you give dispatch who are having a hard time with change? Because I feel like I talk to a lot of folks who are bringing this new technology, and I just had someone on last week. It'll air this month. And they have some technology with the assistive AI, and the
Mhm.
AI basically creates like a caption roll of your radio traffic to increase being able to hear and understand. And one of the comments they made is that they received some feedback that, this new technology could cause a hindrance to folks being able to have a radio ear or a dispatch ear, or depending
Mhm.
on that technology. And for me, I get a little frustrated with those things because it almost feels like we want to train in trauma. Like we've done it hard
Yep.
for 20 years. You need to be able
Yep.
to do it hard without this new tech. And it's like, I don't want to do it hard. I want to do it easy, you
Yeah.
know?
And that's my thing. I'm like, why wouldn't you want, and like, the old adage, dispatchers eat their young. Why?
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 We don't
Don't you
taste
want time
good,
off? I
we
know.
we're in
I'm
training. We
like,
don't shower as much as we
yep.
should. We're not eating right. We're not getting enough sleep. We don't taste good,
Yeah. I want my days off. I want somebody else sitting in my seat that I know
Yeah.
can do the job. So, and when it comes to that with this technology, I love the advancing technology. I love the fact that it's giving us so many more options, like the prepared live, getting the video. My agency, we're really quick. So we've only had a couple opportunities to try it.
Mhm.
But our officers get to scenes so fast. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's going to be a great resource for people that work for counties or state,
Mhm,
where they're
mhm.
having a half hour, 45-minute delay, where you can get those videos on scene. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you
Yeah.
want that option? I'm like, I
Mhm.
want everything that's going to help me and or help the people that I work with. If it's
Yeah.
something that's going to benefit them, then I want it.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those senior dispatchers that doesn't understand the whole I hate change.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. I thrive on it. I thrive on
Mhm.
busy. I thrive on chaos.
Mm.
But I really love learning.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of those things that when I'm teaching, when I'm instructing, don't just take what I'm saying. Go
Mhm.
out and learn more. You want to make yourself a better person, not just in
Mhm.
the dispatch center, but a better person
Mhm.
in general. So if
Yeah.
it means taking a language class or, I don't care,
Mhm.
take pottery, whatever,
Mhm.
something that's going to help you relax, something that's going to help you improve yourself. So this technology is part of that. Learn
Mhm.
it, learn to love it. And, why wouldn't you want to use it? So,
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like I've been doing this for 5 years. In the last 5 years alone, the tech has been,
mm,
like, explosive
mhm,
in the comm center.
yep,
I remember when the rapid SOS type technology got installed in our CAD. I remember when text 911 came about,
mhm,
and, we're only getting more and more tech, and that's just within the last 5 years, let alone
mhm,
a 29 plus career where you've seen CADs be introduced, and
mhm.
better locating cell phones. Gosh, like
Yeah, the phone
all these
systems
things
and
that are
mhm,
so normal for us. I feel like
mhm.
I'm in that age group. I don't know I don't know if I'm a millennial or a Z, whatever the thing
Is he
is, but I
somewhere
feel
in there?
one of those. I probably should know, but I don't. Um, but I feel like I'm in that weird span where we had computers, and I remember playing on a
Mhm,
computer when I was a kid and taking typing class in elementary school. Um, and what I feel like we really grew up watching that tech explode.
mhm.
Like I wasn't young enough to have an iPhone with me as a kid, but I did have that Nokia, and I was rocking the snake game. Okay, let me tell you. And I remember getting yelled at for texting, and when my mom
I
got
had
that bill,
I had the big cell phone. I had the one that I'd hurt you with it. It was a
right, like a
weapon.
weapon. I remember my dad had that.
Mhm. But yeah, but it's with that technology, and this is one of the things that when I train people in the dispatch center, when I'm actually training and I'm CTOing, I grew up with all this technology. I learned it as it happened. They
Mm,
have to learn it all at once.
yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing that trainers need to remember. We've had the experience with it. We learned it as it came in. So
Mhm.
those of us that have been able to build with it, we've been blessed with that. We're lucky. We have to remember that these new people, even though younger people are very good at technology, it's not the type of technology they're used to. So we have to give them that grace and give them that time to learn how to use everything that we set them down in front of. I mean, you're sitting somebody down in front of 8 computer screens with 5 million things going on, and they're used to focusing on one. So it's like, we got to remember that this is a lot going on. This is a lot for them to take in. So to get that, like I said, the dispatch ear, to get the ability to multitask, it takes time. So like I have homework that I give them. What I do is I tell them, go home, sit at your laptop, like I'm sitting right now, at a desk or at a kitchen table. If you don't have one, set it up. If you have just a tablet, whatever, set it up, put your news on in the background. Have the news going in the background while you're playing a game on your laptop with a notepad and paper next to you, and write down the points about what you're hearing. You have to train your brain to pay attention to something that's not right in front of you. So it gives you that chance, that time to be able to learn, okay, well, I can do this. And then, when you start feel like you're getting a little comfortable with that, have a family member start asking you questions and interrupting you while you're doing stuff. And that, that's going to help them with that multitasking and getting that radio ear, which is, it takes time. You can't get it in the first phase. It's not going to be the first or second phase. It's going to take time for them to get that. So
and I think as trainers, we really need to remind folks that, because I you see in these Facebook groups and, folks reach out to me, and they're just frustrated. They're like, I'm not getting it. I don't feel supported. I really want to do well. I'm trying to learn, but I'm, I don't feel like that's being received, and I'm not getting good feedback, empowering me that I'm going to be okay, that I'm going to survive this. Cause it's really about surviving training, because once you're no longer in this state of constant criticism, because that's what our trainers do, because of the risk that's involved in this job, you're going to be critiqued on every single little thing in training. And it feels heavy. I mean, I remember having to go, okay, I need a break, and like walking away and crying in the back room because I was just so overwhelmed and frustrated, feeling like I wasn't getting it, or I was just having a snowball type of training day. And if you're going through that and you're experiencing that, it is okay. You just have to hang on and find someone. If it's not your trainer, and hopefully it is your trainer, but if it's not your trainer, find someone who you can have an honest conversation with and get some honest feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. It hopefully, like you said, it's somebody else in the room that knows it, or maybe somebody that helped you get into the field, whatever it is. But having that, and again, we as trainers, yes, we have to be critical. There's a reason for it, but that doesn't mean you have to be a bitch. That doesn't mean, oh, sorry. Am I allowed to swear?
Okay.
I forgot to say.
I mean, you can. That's fine with me.
I was like, you don't have to be the complete mean person about it. Yes, things have to be corrected, especially if it's something that's a continuing problem, if it's the same thing multiple times over. But if it's their first time making a mistake or whatever, we got to learn from it. Give them the chance, and not, like you said, don't try to eat them right away. Like, let's work through this. But
exactly. And so I have a question. Yes. I don't know if you know the answer to this, because it's been a long time for you, but you said you worked for ADT, and we all want to know where Zone 3 is. Okay, where is it?
Okay, there is no Zone 3. I can tell you Zone 1 is the actual panel. So that's what, and they don't know that. I'm like, how do you not know Zone 1 is your panel? So they say Zone 1, general alarm. Okay, that means you have to check the panel. Gee, thanks. You didn't do anything. So there is no Zone 3. Well, if there is a Zone 3, it's usually something close by the panel. But So when they're doing that and they don't have any clue, they're just not reading their system. I know, because they'll call up and I'll be just like, oh man, you're embarrassing us. Like, right?
Like, come on. Like, oh, it's us. Panic alarm, point of activation, unknown. What? Wait, that's
how is it unknown? Exactly. Especially in this day and age with how these systems work. I worked for that company 30 years ago.
Right.
And, I mean, come on. We knew what it was back then. You can't tell me we haven't proved on anything. It's like,
that is amazing. So see, everybody, we solve riddles here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Zone 1 is the panel. So if you want to correct them,
the panel.
check the panel. Zone 1. Oh, you mean the panel? That's what I'm going to say at work next week. Oh, you mean the panel?
Okay. Got it. You don't know how to read. Oh, did I say that?
Not on this recorded line. That is amazing.
Yeah, yeah, they're a hoot. Yeah, and the fire companies are even worse.
Oh
They're
my gosh.
geez, oh Pete. It's like, come on.
Well,
I
my
don't know
frustration,
what.
yeah, like the
Sorry.
medical alarms too. No, you're fine.
Yeah.
They'll call and I'll be like, okay, here's the number of the fire department. We don't dispatch medical alarms, and they'll call back with an update for medical alarm. Like, I know, I just talked to you.
Yeah. Update the number. Have somebody that
Please.
knows what they're doing. Go in the system. Update our number because stop calling me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I'm busy.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
No, that's
man.
good. Or they'll call with a medical alarm, but they
Mhm.
have no information on the patient.
Like, who's
How do
paying
you have
this
a
bill?
medical alarm? How do you have a medical alarm on somebody you don't even know who they are?
Yeah, like, no, phone number, no. Age, no.
Yeah.
Location, no.
No.
Like, where you want us to go?
Lockbox, key information. We're just gonna break in. Do we
Yeah.
have your permission to break in? Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hot mess.
Yeah.
Hot mess. Do you remember any of your, like, first calls for service or early calls in your career?
You know what? Yeah, I actually it was funny because and I'm gonna say I was not the best dispatcher when I started out because I just like, "You're calling for what? Okay, where are you at? All right, we'll be on the way." Click.
Yeah.
Not asking any questions. It took
Yeah.
a while to realize, "Oh, we're supposed to ask questions?"
Oh, that's
Okay.
that's not my
But
job.
yeah, one of my best ones was I talked with Jesus Christ. And yeah, oh yeah. And
Okay.
he had things to say.
Oh.
So he was ready to, pray over the guys, but he
Mhm.
needed them to come down and he was gonna, and I'm thinking this is a total setup. This is gonna be an ambush. I'm like, this
Yeah.
dude is, I'm not following for it, buddy.
Yeah.
But this guy thought he was Jesus Christ and he was
Okay.
ready to play and have a good time. And we're just like, oh Lord. I'm like,
Did
okay.
you have to bring wine and bread? Or, like, what were the
No,
requirements?
nope. He actually had Lunchables set up for the guys, and it was like not quite what we were anticipating. But
Okay.
he like literally he set them down and then he goes, okay, bye. And he started running, and they're just like, I remember talking to the guys afterwards, they're like, should we chase him? Has he done anything? It's like, all right, bye.
It's like lifting
Like,
Lunchables looking for meth. Like, where is
yeah, we're like, what is this dude's doing? But yeah, so that one, and I think the other one that really stuck with me from back at my original agency was a dad called in and he goes, yeah, I need a rescue for my son. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, what's going on with your son? He goes, well, he's bleeding. And I'm like, from where? He goes, his chest. And I'm like, why? He goes, well, I stabbed him. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, what'd you stab him with? He goes, a butcher knife. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like,
Oh.
where's your son at? Well, he goes, he's sitting on the steps outside the trailer. And I'm like, where's the knife? He goes, in the kitchen sink. I already washed it. And I'm like, what the heck is I'm like, how did you stab him? He literally stabbed him and it went between the ribs, missed all his major organs.
Oh, wow.
And this kid was actually sitting on the steps when the officers got there. And
Wow.
dad came out, no problem. But they were arguing because the son was playing his music too loud. So he stabbed him with a butcher knife.
My gosh.
I was like, well, all right. But the son was okay.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
And I don't know if folks who don't have a direct line to, the first responder world or this line of work realize like how often that type of stuff
Yeah.
happens. I
Well,
remember go ahead.
Yep. No, go ahead.
I remember I had we had this tech at my old agency called Shot Spotter, and we had like a bunch of rounds go off. So we checked the area, couldn't find any evidence of a shooting, no witnesses, nothing suspicious, clear the call. And about 30 minutes later, it's like 2 a.m. Like 30 minutes later, a guy calls 911. He's like, I came over to my friend's house. I'm like, your friend, 2 a.m.? Okay, go ahead, sir. Came over to my friend's house, and there's bullet holes everywhere. And she has holes all over her. And she's telling me not to call the police. But she's shot everywhere, but it's just like you're like, it's 2 a.m. He's like, yeah, I came over to my friends and there's bullet holes everywhere. And And that's how often those type of calls happen, where it's just like, you're just plotting along about your
Yep.
day. Hi, I
Yep.
need an ambulance for
Yeah.
what? I stabbed someone, or I shot someone, or and just calm, like just very like
Yep.
matter of
Well, I've
fact.
actually got a very good example of that, and
Mhm.
it went TikTok famous last year. It made the rounds again. It's actually from like 11 years ago. I think it's got like 2 or 3 million listens, views, whatever TikTok is. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't have TikTok because I
You
am
know,
old.
I think it's all of those things, maybe.
But yeah, so it was a double axe murder suicide. And I'd literally just made my lunch,
Oh my god.
sat down with my lunch, and my partner was up away from her position. So I answered the 911 call. I'm like, 911, da 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 da. And she goes, "There's been a murder suicide. There's no survivors. You need to come right now." And I'm like, "What? Who?
Oh.
What?" I
And I
was like,
want everyone to
"Ah."
know, Kat was definitely mid pull at her food when she was taking this call, because that's hot. You've been waiting 12 hours for it, and you're like,
Mhm.
murder suicide? Okay, let me just put this down. I
Okay.
wasn't even gonna
Yep.
enjoy that bite
And
anyway.
I
You know?
literally, I said as soon as she said that, I was like, "Shit." I'm like, "Okay." I set it aside, and unfortunately, it ended up being worse. She didn't know that her mom was also a victim as well,
Oh
but,
my
so
gosh.
it ended up being a double axe murder suicide, but, yeah, so that one's on TikTok. I could actually send you the link if you wanna listen to it, but
Man, that is
it's,
wild.
yeah, and you're like you said, and then when you hear the call and what she says, and she's very calm, she's obviously in shock,
Yeah.
but she's very calm through the whole thing. She gets a
Mhm.
little, uppy a couple of times, a little chippy, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, it's not what you anticipate when you're taking your lunch, when you're eating your lunch. It's not,
Yeah.
but you get those calls and you just, yep, set everything aside,
And
stand
start
up.
working, start typing,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
think the manner in which, like that's wild, like an axe murder, like, and a
Hmm.
suicide at that, like
Yep.
the violence that comes with that, and, the
Hmm.
intention that comes with using a
Exactly.
weapon like that. um,
Yep.
it's out there, and it's out there more than it's reported on the news. It's
Way
out
more.
there more than
Exactly.
anyone is really aware of, and it's funny,
Hmm.
at this safety fair thing yesterday, someone asked me, like, "How is it living in this community where a lot of folks are a little frustrated with, like, property crime and unhoused individuals coming into the area and stealing packages," and these things that I think, being in this line of work, you just kinda realize is a part of life out there living in the
Yep.
world, and you
Yep.
understand that policing or first responder services are reactive. We're not
Hmm.
preventative. You call us when
As
the
much as
door's
we like
being
to think we can,
right?
yeah, we can. Yeah.
You call us when the
Yep.
door's been kicked in, or someone has to
Mhm.
someone should have to commit a crime to have contact with us. And
Yep.
a lot of folks have a hard time understanding that we're not going to prevent folks from becoming victims. We're trying to lessen
Yep.
those chances or opportunities, but a lot of that comes from how we operate in our day-to-day lives,
Mhm.
that prevention
Yep.
aspect. um and it's tough, and like some things you just, I get, how do you prevent a double axe, murder
Yeah.
suicide with,
Exactly.
what can you
Yeah.
do but respond? And it's tough taking those calls as a dispatcher. I would, especially,
Yep.
you being the dispatcher who took that call, who folks around the world are listening to on social media now.
Yep.
You're the individual who answered that phone call. Like,
Yeah. And it hit like when it hit the news, we knew it hit local news.
mhm,
Um, I was not prepared for it to hit national and international news, which it did.
mhm,
So
mhm.
the amount of calls, because I have obviously a very distinctive voice like you do.
Uh-huh.
So I have
Yeah.
a very distinctive voice. So I had people that were messaging me right away because it was on
Yeah.
the Today Show.
Man.
And it was, yeah, so it made big news at the time. This was back in
Mhm.
2012 when this happened,
Yeah.
because you don't anticipate this happening in a suburb, a nice suburb
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
You don't anticipate something like that happening. And then there was another brutal murder and beating that happened in the bordering jurisdiction just
Mm,
north of us
mm,
a week later.
mhm.
That's also made international news as well. And people were like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
again, we have to remember that as dispatchers, we're going to see this. We're going to see it day in and day out. We're going to
Mhm.
see that 5%.
Yeah.
We're going to see the worst of everything for a very long time. So, and that's where it comes into, okay, taking care of yourself, taking care of your officers, you know, what does that look like for you? So, and to remember that even though you're part of that because of the call, you still have to learn to separate yourself from that. And it can be really hard to do, especially when people get really invested in these calls. Yeah, my daughter just took one of her worst calls. She's been doing this 1.5 years with me now. She's at my agency.
So cute.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. She
Yeah.
started when she was 19 and
Very
she's
cool.
doing great.
Yeah.
But she had her first call where she lost a baby and nothing she could have done would have changed the outcome. Unfortunately, that baby was deceased when we got the call, but she did everything she needed to, giving the parents the CPR instruction, trying to keep the scene calm until firefighters and officers got there. But that's still going to have an effect on you. Even if it doesn't at that moment, you have to be very careful of watching when that does creep back up, especially when you take a similar call 1 year from now or 2 years from now. So, yeah.
And I imagine, you know, not everyone gets to work with their mom, who is honestly a complete badass in this line of work. So I'm sure she feels good to be able to have someone who gets it, you know, to relate to. And I think that's half the battle, right? Is like having someone who understands and can give some feedback and who has experienced, you know, quote unquote loss in this line of work. You know, it's super important.
Yeah. And I have a lot of CISM training and a lot of mine is faith-based. So, you know, just helping her out with that. And her dad's a retired police officer. So yeah, I did that. I was that dispatcher.
Hey man, sometimes we gotta get that pension, you know, you gotta set up that retirement. I respect it.
Oh yeah, no, he's somebody else's problem now. So 'cause we did that too.
Statistics, you gotta keep it consistent, you know.
But yeah, definitely having that person that you can talk to is so imperative. And I'm very glad we have a very good relationship. So
Awesome.
she's able to talk and able to share when she needs to. So
very cool. So I did want to circle back to something that I don't think we talk about, or we talk about it a little bit in as a haha, I think. And I know I do. Like I always say, like, man, that might be my Dateline episode, you know, like that might be the one where I end up on national TV. And I don't think we recognize it as much, and we need to operate as such that any call, it's all recorded, it's all public record.
Everything you do is recorded.
And you never know, you know, how you're going to end up on TV, what kind of call it'll be, you know, for you. I imagine, I haven't heard the call, but it's out there, obviously. But I would hope that when I do end up on the Dateline and the national news, that it's in a praising manner,
in a positive,
in which they're like, man, that was a rough call and the dispatcher rocked it. But we know there are calls out there that are like, ooh, like that's not.
I also teach a 911 liability class, so
right? Like, oh, you know, we don't want, you know,
some not good examples.
And we just need to always, every single call. And I know we can talk about burnout and like what is contributing to these dispatch calls that are not showing the best foot forward for the dispatcher. But just like our officers, you know, who are out there, we're held to a higher standard to conduct ourselves in a certain manner when we're interacting with the public. And just because the last 20 people yelled at us, cussed us out, you know, paid our salary and all that, doesn't mean that the 21st person gets our, you know, gets us to dump on them. And I know that can be tough, but we need to.
And that's one thing we do. We need to be better. We need to make sure that we're professionals. This is a career. This is a job. You are a professional. You are there to, just like the officers, protect and serve. So serve is a part of our moniker. You have to do that. So there's going to be times where people are driving you up your ever-loving wall. You're not having a good day yourself. Something might personally in your personal life be affecting you, but you have to learn to take care of you to make sure that when you're on that call, you treat everybody with the same respect. Doesn't matter if it's your local EDP, which we call EDPs are emotionally disturbed persons. So whether it's your local EDP and one that you deal with on a regular basis, or somebody that you know that's a local alcoholic, or that family that is always fighting, you still have to treat them with respect. You're still going to have to ask the questions. You're not just going to go, okay, then yeah, we're on the way, click. No, you still have to ask the questions. Officer safety is still paramount. Citizen safety is still paramount. So you still have to do your job and be respectful, because you don't want to be that example, you know, on the news where this dispatcher was laughing in the background, dropping F-bombs, making fun of the caller, saying they just don't care what happens to someone.
Yeah.
I pray to God none of my coworkers end up being that person. And I don't think they would. Yeah, everybody has their moments, but we're professionals. We need to act like it.
Exactly. So true.
Yep.
I did want to touch on, because this fascinates me, Homeland Security and dispatch. What is it? Like, what does that look like? Like, why I always find it so interesting when I meet folks who are doing dispatch related things for agencies. I'm like, oh man, they got dispatch options. Like, I met someone who worked for the FBI when I was at a clutch training, and they were telling me their job. I'm like, oh, so you're answering the phones for the FBI. Like, that's cool. Like, you know, so what does Homeland Security and dispatch look like?
So Homeland Security in dispatch, when I teach this class, I teach them, I tell them, there's not going to be a specific question that I'm going to give you today that's going to go, woohoo, I figured out this is the bad guy, this is the bomber, this is going to be the guy, unless they're calling and giving you their manifest, their whatever they're going to call it, unless they're calling and giving you saying, hey, like what's his name, the Pulse nightclub man team, he called and said, hey, this is me, I'm in here, I'm doing this. It's rare. That's rare you're ever going to get that. But when it comes to Homeland Security, the big thing is making sure that you and your agency are prepared for a large scale scenario. And what that looks like for your agency, whether it's a small department, a county, a state. What do you have available? What are your resources? Do you know how to get a hold of them? Do you have contact and updated information for them? Are you participating in large scale scenarios when they're doing this? So when your police department's doing their active shooter training, are you being a part of that? Are you going, are they having dispatchers actually dispatch that event? They should be. If they're not, they should be. They should be a part of the large multi-jurisdictional stuff that they do. So our agency has gotten very good about bringing in dispatch, and we'll play victims or we'll play the bad guys, you know, during the SRT training, they'll bring them in. But also we need to be in there as part of the dispatchers, because this is our job. So we need to know what you're going to expect from us when a large scale scenario, because they forget about us. They go, well, we know we're going to need this many ambulances. We know we're going to need, I said, but who's going to dispatch them? Yeah. You have to be prepared for that. So I think one of the best examples of that was the Aurora shooting. Both dispatchers, both the fire and the police dispatcher, I think when it came to keeping track of their units and all that type of stuff, did great job. Yeah, you know, people are like, oh, things were missed. Things, yeah. You know what? It's the heat of the moment. There's a lot going down.
And there's two dispatchers. You know what I mean? Like, people need to understand that. There's so many working pieces, two dispatchers, two humans, you know? Like, it's rough.
Exactly. There were a ton of other people answering the calls and doing all that other stuff, but they're handling the radios, and the radios alone are absolutely off the hook during any type of event like that. So you have to be prepared for that. And a lot of agencies forget that dispatchers need that practice too. They need to be a part of the walking board, you know. So what happens when they sit down and they're having a meeting about the Christmas parade, we'll say. So you're having a Christmas parade, and you know it's going to be involving police, fire, DPW is going to be there. You're going to have a bunch of other agencies coming in and helping out, because there's literally going to be hundreds of people on part of this parade, but there's also going to be the citizens, and we got to make sure there's safety. We had the incident in Wisconsin, you know, when that happened. So right after that, we had a big sit down at our agency, and our emergency manager was smart enough to call me down for that meeting. and to
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
okay, this is somebody that needs to be a part of this because they know what goes on in the dispatch center when anything happens or anything goes wrong. So how
Yeah.
is that looking? How is that going to work for you guys? So that's one of the
Mhm.
biggest things. Obviously, it's an 8-hour class, so I do a lot
Mhm.
more than that during that class.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing, is making sure that your agency is participating in
Mhm.
multi-jurisdictional, large-scale scenario events,
Mhm.
that you're a part of it, your dispatch is a part of it, and you have that communication between your supervision as well as your dispatchers. If you've got a TERT team,
Mhm.
a tactical response team, do you have dispatchers on that?
Yeah.
Do they go in and train with the SRT team?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? So there's so many things that we can be doing better as dispatchers. It's still a learning curve. I've been doing this, like I said, almost 30 years, and I'm still
Mm.
battling to get a lot of this stuff in place.
Yeah.
Um, but some agencies do great at it, but the
Mhm.
majority, they don't think. They see police, they see fire. There, we're
Yeah.
done.
And
So
my thought when it comes to, like, these I haven't had to deal with an active shooter incident thus far, but my thought always goes to when when agencies are doing these preparations and they're training, they're preparing for once their boots hit the floor and they're able to, what do they do when they're on scene? But there's a good, typically 5, sometimes 10-minute gap where your
mhm,
dispatchers, and it always, I don't want to say always, but it happens at these small centers where they're
mhm,
sometimes staffed by 1 or 2 people, and
yep,
you have a school full of, let's say, 100, 200 folks who are dealing with an active shooter situation. Those 100, 200 folks are calling into a dispatch center where only 2 people are answering the phone. So the question
yep.
becomes, what direction, as far as policy liability and the intention to save as many lives as possible, are you wanting these dispatchers to communicate? Because not only are we gonna be fielding these calls from victims, potential victims, and folks
Mhm,
who are on scene, we have to provide that information to the officers responding, the most
yep,
accurate and updated information. So I think what gets lost a lot of times with this prep stuff is, like, what do you want us doing
yep.
while you're on the way there?
Yeah. Do
Because,
you have policies in place for
yeah,
that? Yeah.
what
And
is my
it's
direction?
Yep, and that's just it, and they don't think about that. So, and that's one of the things that I tell people, a good thing to do is take the ALICE training. So if
Mm,
you haven't had ALICE training, ALICE is a great training, and that's what a lot of companies are using. So a
mm,
lot of it is, we'll talk, how are these kids? Are they on a lockdown? What does that mean for us?
mm,
How do we get around that? How
mhm,
are our guys going to get into? How do our guys get into the building? What's going on with that?
mhm.
So, and I've taught this class, I can't tell you how many times over the last 7, almost 8 years,
Yeah.
where people have zero clue on how their officers respond once they get there. They
Mhm.
need to know this. They
Yeah.
need to know that their officers are, and most agencies, not all, but most agencies are now training first on scene, first in. Your job is to neutralize that threat.
Yeah.
We're not worrying about victims. We're not
Yeah.
worrying about, our
That is
job
the
is to
new
get to
norm.
the
Yeah.
threat. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like, how is your agency handling that? Is that what's
Mhm.
anticipated? And again, what is your role in the safety of all your callers? Because they're
Yeah.
calling you for help. They're
Yeah.
not just calling to tell. They need to know what to do because they're in a situation where they've never been before. And
Yeah.
yes, even though this is becoming the norm, how
Mm,
do you do that? So yeah,
mhm.
so do you have policies in place? What exactly do you say? Do I have the right to shoot someone? Do you have the policy in place for that?
Yeah.
What is your state's, mandate? We have the
Yeah.
castle doctrine here in Michigan.
Mhm. Mhm.
But what is your state's mandate
Mhm.
on that? Do people have the right to shoot someone? You
Yeah.
know, and what do they say if they ask the dispatcher that? If the dispatcher is asked, "Can I shoot someone?" What
Mhm.
do you say back to them?
Yeah. No, it's
So
super
these
it's
are
super important. And
Yep.
especially with school shootings being on such a high, like,
Mhm.
what information do you have about that school's policy? What information, what layouts, what blueprints, what I hopefully, the agency is planning a certain response for the school they know they're gonna respond to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how are you
Yep.
gonna enter this place, and how many exits are there? And if we're familiar as a dispatcher with how the school's set up. If someone says they're in the library and we know that's on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 side, we're going to be able to communicate that better to our officers who are responding and know the layout as well. Just those little things that sometimes can get missed by the folks who are setting up these trainings. And it's paramount.
And I've had a lot of agencies say, "Oh, we've got those in our computer system." Okay, God forbid, in the middle of all of this, your computer goes, I'm done.
Because that's when it happens. Everybody.
Exactly. It happens in the middle of something. It happens during a storm. It happens. Screw it.
Right?
So we have the actual plot maps. We have the actual physical plot maps of our schools, of all of our schools. And all the doors are numbered. We have that in our center, so we can actually pull the big book out and look at it and go through it. Should our computers go down? Yes, they're on our computers, but there's also going to be not a lot of time for us to be clicking because we're going to be in the middle of all those calls to be able to pull it up on a computer system and that. Pull that map out. You got it in front of you. You can use a grease pen, write down whatever you want on it. So you should have those options. Yes, the phones, everything are great. All the computers are wonderful. You should have paper backups and keep them up to date. So,
and I know, like for folks, especially like it's 2023, why we have map books and then why we have this, we have all this technology, and it's like if the criticism is gonna come when you don't have it and the shit hits the fan. So it's just better to be, the mom in the department who's like, we need all the stuff, right? Like, and have it there, because if you don't have it and then the incident occurs and then you fail to act in some way, shape, or form, we don't want that on our conscience. We don't want to know that we had knowledge to be able to do better and we just chose not to for whatever reason.
Because we didn't want to kill a tree. But
like whatever that is. Like, we don't want that. We had enough trauma on our chest with what we do already. We don't need something preventative. And then, liability wise, we want to make sure that everyone has the tools that are available to be able to help folks. And from a lot of these incidents, we see policies being brought. Like you said, people are going in and neutralizing rather than waiting up and making contact teams anymore. Incidents change policy, they change responses. So we want it. In a perfect world, an incident wouldn't happen, but the incident does happen, and we want folks to look at what we did and go, "You guys did everything
they did the best they could.
We did. There's nothing we would change. There's nothing they could have prevented. Like, we can add this knowing this stuff happened now, but there's nothing that's a glaring red flag that we just failed to do." That's what we want when incidents, unfortunately, do happen.
Yeah. Exactly. And like I said, and I've seen those changes. I've seen that after, the North Hollywood shootout, the changes that brought to police departments and their responses, and their changes of the equipment going from shotguns to rifles, Columbine, how that was handled, and everything since, even since the Aurora shooting. And now we have gas masks. Everybody has gas masks because, it wasn't something that they really thought was going to be necessary. But here we have an incident where the officers couldn't get in because of the tear gas. So it's like, how prepared are we for whatever is going to happen? But having, like I said, I'm old school. And there's some people that just learn better from having it physically in their hands. So if you have a trainee that's struggling with the computer, give them that time away from give them a half hour to go sit and look at the maps or look at the books. Give them that time to absorb from something that there's tactile and in their hands. Some people learn better that way. One of my trainees, she's one of my coworkers now, she created her own book. So she has all the cheat sheets, all the codes, everything she needs in her book, and she knows exactly where it's at. She just pulls it out of her locker when she comes into work, sets it down beside her position, and she knows where to look for her stuff the way she wants it set up. It's a great way to do it.
Such good advice. Such good advice. Well, we're coming to the close of our interview, and it's been amazing so far. It's just so much info, so good, such great stories. I really appreciate you coming out and being willing to jump on and talk to me.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. So,
well, I wanted to ask you one more question. It's the question I typically close with every time, which is, what advice would you give someone considering a career in dispatch?
I think the best piece of advice I could give is to take it. It is an actual career. This is a great opportunity to do something that you never really thought of. I mean, we have the opportunity to help people at the worst points in their lives and to have them come out, hopefully, even though it might have been the worst point, but come out with a memory of somebody actually cared about them. That's a great opportunity. It's a great resource for us to be able to do that. And don't take it seriously all the time, though. You got to have fun with this. I'm always laughing on the job. I love my job. I love what I do. I love teasing my guys. I love teasing my coworkers. I love teasing the people that I train and instruct. But you got to learn to have fun with it, have that downtime, find a way to take care of yourself. But this is an absolutely amazing career, and it can be a great stepping stone to things even better, you know, whether it's director, emergency manager, whatever it is that you want to do in your life. There's a lot of great opportunities coming out of dispatch. So take the chance.
Amazing. Kat, again, thank you so much for all you do, all you have done over the years, dragging your daughter into it because we need more dispatchers. Thank you. I've really learned so much from you today.
All right. I appreciate the opportunity. Again, thank you very much.
Awesome. I'll be right
Keep
back.
being
with you.
awesome.
Okay. Thank you. All right, everybody. That was another amazing episode here at Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Kat, thank you so much for all you do, all you continue to do. There is definitely something to know when, like, in a dispatch center, you have to ask questions. And if you feel like you're uninformed on a certain type of call that you may take in this line of work, make sure that you're asking the folks who are creating these policies how they want you to respond, because it's better to be prepared than unprepared in this line of work. See, again, you never know what kind of call you are going to take. If you like, subscribe, tell a friend. If you're interested in coming onto the show, just head to theraspydispatcher.com. Pick a date and time that works for you. I look forward to connecting with and talking to everyone. Until next time, everybody, stay raspy. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Dispatch, a Raspy Dispatcher production. If you like the podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and of course, tell a friend. If you want to be a guest, head to theraspydispatcher.com and check out our additional resources. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody.